Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of The Social Critic. My name is Sohail Shakeri, and today we're going to be talking about fear versus love in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so at the time of filming this, we're in mid-April of 2020. And I live in California, as I mentioned previously, and we are here in lockdown quarantine period. And so I thought this video on the topic of fear and love could help us and give us some insight into how we function and how fear and love impact us respectively. So starting with fear and love, and so I will talk about these two together because they are opposites. Okay, so there are many qualities, many characteristics which have an element of fear in them. Things like anger at somebody, being manipulative, whether it's exerting brute force over another person, violence. Okay, all of these things have the quality of creating fear. Okay, and then you have, for example, with love, compassion, kindness, joy, nobility. All of these things have an element of love. Being, when I say nobility, I mean having noble spirit, virtuous in that sense. So all of those things, they have an element of love in them. Okay, and so, and I'm not talking about, as you probably could figure out by now, I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about deep love. Romantic love is one aspect of love, but it is a small component of it. Okay, and so fear, all those qualities that have an element of fear in them or try to evoke fear in others, the state that they create within us is an element of contraction. Okay, whereas on the other hand, anything that has a quality of love, where we're giving love, where we're receiving love, it has an element of expansion. Okay, with love, it's like, you have a flame. Okay, and there are things that you can do to kindle. There's things that can kindle your own flame and make it larger and larger. And then you can also kindle someone else's flame and make it larger and larger and larger as well. And just like a candle, when you take one candle and you light another, you don't lose any light in that initial candle. Okay, so love just grows and grows and grows and grows. Okay, similarly, fear can grow and grow and grow and grow, but in a contractive way. So it's like you're creating more and more contraction in people, whereas love is creating more and more expansion. Okay, so you have fear, which creates contraction, and you have love that creates expansion. Okay, so that's expansion of spirit, expansion of consciousness. Okay, so love helps us evolve to become bigger, more advanced, more humane. Okay? Whereas fear, it brings us into our lowest base instinctual elements. Okay? So qualities that you'll find in our reptilian brain. Okay, so they keep us in our reptilian brain. Okay, so reptiles are cold-blooded. Okay, so sometimes when they, you hear people talk about like snipers and people who really advance high in business, and we talk about them. Oh, they're very shrewd and cold-blooded. Okay, so they can do things without compassion, without love. Okay, and sometimes we use those qualities as a compliment, but from a human perspective, having those qualities is not allowing us to evolve. It's not allowing us to evolve, and it's not helping others evolve. It's keeping us in that reptilian brain framework. Okay, so it's keeping us essentially bringing our evolution down to the level of reptiles. But then with love, it's taking our evolution higher and deeper. Okay, where we expand and can evolve to be the most amazing, magnificent beings that we could possibly be, and that can only be done through love. And then, so with fear or love, both of these qualities in our being, they start when we're really young. Okay, and you might be asking at this point, what does this have to do with COVID-19? And we'll get there quickly. So with COVID-19, there's an element of, in watching the news about it, there's a big element of fear. There's a big element of questioning our survival, questioning the survival of other human beings, stating that we need to perform certain tasks or do certain things, otherwise we won't survive or others will not survive. Okay, and so that survival framework, that's a very reptilian brain place. Okay, now there's a place for survival and focusing on survival. For example, if we're driving a car, okay, and we want to avoid an accident and we slam on the brakes, and that's not something that we think about consciously. That's just that instinctual coming up and we just do it. Okay, so that's a great place for that survival instinct to come in play. However, there's a lot of times where this is, we come from that survival instinct place where not only is it unnecessary, but it's harmful because it's misplaced. Okay? So this fear-based approach to life starts from the time that we're babies, toddlers. If our parents are trying to get us to do certain things and saying, if you don't, I'm going to call the police and they're going to come get you, or if you don't, I'm going to punish you and I'm going to, hurt you. We may not use those words, but essentially that's what we're saying. And while we may get the child to behave in the way that we want, we're creating a fear based mindset and a fear frequency for the child. We're keeping them in a state of contraction. Okay? Whereas if we can learn to teach through love, like by modeling and by affection, and letting them know that they are loved, that they're in a safe place, and then giving them modeling qualities to imitate, then we can get them to take on the appropriate behavior in order to function in this world without creating fear, but doing so in a love-based mindset where it allows them to expand and grow. And so this approach, this continues all throughout our lives. Okay, so there's this constant conflict between fear and love all throughout our lives. And this exists, also, in schooling. Okay, so like, for example, if our aim is to get good grades, so that we can pass a test, when we're older, so that we can get into an appropriate a school or grade school, one that we feel is like something that we need to do in order to be the best of ourselves. Well, a lot of times thinking about that future reward or punishment for not getting into that school or not getting that profession, a lot of times that creates the fear within us that is, in many cases, it's misplaced. Whereas, if we take our schooling and we get our training from teachers in a way that they encourage us to model, to think critically, to learn by discovery and experience, and focus on just that experience then and there, then that can allow us to expand our consciousness and to grow. Whereas the other mindset keeps us contracted in a sphere survival type mindset. So while we may use our reasoning faculties, our cerebral thinking, in many cases, even if we are in a fear-based mindset, most times when we have the fear-based mindset, even if we're using our rational thinking to justify it, we're still in a state of contraction. We're not growing. We're not having others grow either. Okay? Another place where this contrast exists is in religion. Okay? I talked in one of my earlier videos about types of religiosity. If we are raised in an environment where religion is taught to us as do's and don'ts, and that if we do this, we'll go to heaven. If we don't do this, we'll go to hell. Then that is, in and of itself, is creating a fear-based mindset for us. And so, if we live with that mindset, then that is keeping us contracted. Okay? Whereas, if we have a religious approach that encourages us to question, to think curiously about things, or to experience certain things for ourselves, then that's a love-based approach, where that gives one freedom. Whereas the fear-based approach seeks to control. Okay, that's why you have so many religious clerics, and I don't care what particular religion they may be coming from, but if you have clerics or religious authorities, talking about us doing certain things or believing in certain things in order to go to heaven and to avoid going to hell, well, that's creating a fear-based mindset for us. And so it can be done in the most, under the most noble guise, but if it's imbuing this quality of fear, then it's not allowing us to grow and to fulfill our divine potential, to love expansively, and to cultivate that for ourselves and for others. And so going back to our current time, okay, so I mentioned I'm in California, the quarantine And so the media, okay, the mainstream media, I have another video about the media and how many companies control pretty much all of our information. And that's including not just the television, because I know for a lot of people my generation or younger, we get our information from social media. And even in social media, there are certain checks and balances, quote unquote, in place in order to make sure that that we're getting the right information, and to make sure that that certain viewpoints are not given a platform in order to spread their message. So we have to be conscious of that as well. So when I talk about the mainstream media being funded by 5 companies, it's not just the TV and radio and newspapers that they're controlling. But then if you also look at social media, investigate for yourselves, then you'll find that we're talking about a few companies there that are controlling the entire social media landscape as well. So, so that being said, with COVID-19, if we're getting information that is creating fear in us and this survival instinct, it's important for us to really investigate it before we take it on as a belief. Okay, because a lot of times the fears that are created are done so in order to keep people locked in a specific frame of mind and frame of consciousness, and to keep people contracted. Okay, so if a few companies are trying to control our media, so the only way that they can control people through the media is by keeping people locked in a specific state of consciousness, and you can only do that by preventing them from expanding their consciousness, and the way you do that is fear. Okay, so any information that we get where it creates a sense of fear in us, we have to say, wait a minute, is this fear that I'm experiencing and feeling right now, is this well placed, or is it misplaced? Is this truly a survival circumstance, or is it not? So it's important for us to investigate and look at things from different perspectives before we take something on as a belief, because we want to make sure it's accurate, and we want to make sure that it is accurate and reflects reality. And so the only way that we can do that is to take things initially with a grain of salt, and then investigate, and then based off of looking at multiple different sources, then come to a specific conclusion. And so, yeah, I hope you found that helpful, and thank you for your time, and look forward to speaking to you on the next video.